Today on Lightning Bugs.
Sometimes I might have a title or an idea about what I want to write to, but not all the time. I'd say that's 25% of the time. Mostly I start with the music and I sing, like McCartney, scrambled egg words, or cauliflower, like John Lennon says. I'll record that and then I'll try and sometimes there's certain ways you sing that even though it's gibberish, but it really sounds good. And, and then you have to find the words that won't take that feeling away as well.
Right. To not wreck the nonsense, the feeling, because the nonsense doesn't weigh on the listener. You're not asking anything of anyone. You're just giving them pitched mouth noises with a good voice, and it's working.
Hi, thank you for watching my podcast. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let us know how we're doing. Go to Lightning Bugs on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review with your thoughts. Or if you have any ideas for guests, we want to hear from you. So leave us that. Leave us your suggestions on Apple Podcast reviews.
I'm going to read the intro then. They'll put this up.
All right, read the intro now, and then we say goodbye.
Check this out. I just wrote this. You're going to like it. It's going to sum it up really well for you. Hailing from Beckenham, Kent, UK. Did I pronounce that right? Beckenham?
Yes.
All right. Peter Frampton is one of the greatest and most renowned guitarist and recording artists in rock history. That's accurate, yes. A late bloomer, Frampton finally found success at age 16 with his band, The Herd. Before that, he struggled for years, 12 years old, 13, 14, 15 years old, and a string of rock bands which only made him sort of famous. With Frampton on lead guitar and vocals, The Herd earned chart-topping success in the UK, but only a few times, so Frampton left the band at age 18. And in that year, 1968, a year in which I was still shitting my pants, a teen magazine, it's true, all this is true, a teen magazine called Rave proclaimed Peter Frampton to be the face of 1968. Not that he wasn't a handsome young man, but he would have been more appropriately awarded Fingers of 1968 instead, or Voice of 1968. But we don't choose our accolades the way we are worshipped or how others react to our beauty. And so by the mid-1970s, one of the greatest musicians in rock music became a teen idol. So did Peter Frampton. In 1968, I've got drums here. In 1968, he quit The Herd at 19 and formed Humble Pie with Steve Marriott for a few minutes. Then he went solo, made a bunch of records, did a bunch of tours, lived a bunch of lives. And in 2020, a year in which we were all shitting our pants, Mr. Frampton offered the world a memoir, Do You Feel Like I Do? We're here to learn something about creativity from the man himself. It's a goddamn honor, Peter Frampton.
Oh, thank you so much. Is that me you're talking about?
Yeah, most of it, yeah.
Most.
Have you ever interviewed anyone before?
Me?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's weird. You know what you want to do is right off the bat, you want to start asking those same stupid questions that everyone asks.
Exactly.
I heard the first one. I met you briefly for the first time at the Ryman, and you were kind enough to come see my band's show. And I only got a chance to walk past you a couple times because I was, inundated with stuff. And every time I walked past, someone would say, I just want to tell you that your album, the live one, was the first album that I ever bought. And you were like, oh, well, that's amazing. And then I'd walk by and come back and like the seventh person was saying that to you. And I was like, this is a very patient man.
Well, the thing is that, yes, but you have to forget, it's not even patience. It's just understanding that this one person that you might never meet again has got the opportunity to say how much they love your painting, your photo, your album, or whatever. And it's a time period for them, especially music.
Yeah.
So you have to give them the time to say it, and try and make them not nervous.
So many people I've known who have made stuff that's impacted people's life actually have come to the point of being gracious about it, because I think you realize what a gift it is. And the stuff that I've listened to growing up, what I realize is when someone comes to you and says these things, you've been speaking to them for years. They've sat and listened to you, and now they have 2 seconds to answer or to ask or to say something else. You know,
exactly. And it's it can be very frustrating because you can see the frustration in their faces when they're the next one in line and they don't get to. And where do you draw the line? You know, it's like, how many people do you say hello to after the show? As many as you can, you know, or wherever it may be. But when someone says, "Oh, it's time to go," it's like, "Oh, yeah, I really want to go, but you know, it's hard. It's hard because you don't want to let people down."
What were those? Did you like? I mean, you started so young. I've got your bio. I'm gonna not your bio, but I wrote an intro. I'm just gonna do that in a second.
Okay.
But so
we're not using any of this?
I don't know. Probably.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll use something. We'll definitely use that because that's keeping it very real. So, man, when you were when you were a kid, did you have the opportunity to stand in line and be that guy that got to ask a question or get something signed or talk to somebody? And who was that for you?
Gosh, I tell you, I was in a band called The Preachers when I was like 14, 15. And we got to accompany a couple of girl singers called The Other Two, as it were. And and we were playing the London Palladium, and it must have been a charity type of show. And Tom Jones was the headliner, you know? And my dad was there, and I said, "Dad, it's Tom Jones." And he said, "Well, go over there and get his order, you know, say hello." And I said, I can't do it. I can't. So my dad goes, "Oh, Tom, I say, old chap, would you mind just signing this for my son?" So actually, I didn't do it, but
your father did it for you.
But my dad did it for me. So, but I don't like going backstage into other artists' world. It's very uncomfortable for me. Yeah. And to ask them for an autograph is for me, like my band, we all played Frampton Guitar Circus. The first one was the first guy that answered the call to come and be my opening act was B.B. King. I mean, I'll never believe it's how do you fathom that, you know? So I thanked him. And it's like, you know, when he came, it's like I'm so nervous, and I go to meet him on the bus, and I get up there, and there's his bodyguards, and I go to the back of the bus, and there's BB sitting right there, and I said, "Mr. BB, Mr. King, would you? I wondered if you would do whatever." And he said, "Peter, come sit down." He said, "I want you to do what you tell me. It's your show. You tell me what you want." And it's like, oh my God. So that was how it started. And then throughout the tour, I'm not sure. Maybe he did 2.5 weeks of shows with us, 3 weeks maybe, and the band all got him to sign their guitars. I forgot, or I didn't. I just don't think of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's wild how, you know, I just very reverent of people like that. You know, obviously, he was the king, and he was the sweetest man. That was the thing I gleaned from him was everyone around him might have been a little different, but he was just the nicest man in the world and went on to sing my praises in interviews and all. Very, very nice man. And, but hard to go up for the autograph. That's hard for me.
Oh, me too. I've stood in line once. I was playing on one side of Kansas City, and I got off stage just in time to get my ass over to the other side to see the last song for an artist named Freddie Johnson. Do you remember Freddie? Mm-hmm. I really liked his songs. And I stood in line with his CD to get it signed, and I kind of chickened out the last minute. I just got shy and I left. And years later, a friend of his met me and said, you know, Freddie told me that you stood in line at his show and then just left. And it didn't even occur to me that he would recognize another musician like myself as I left. I think we don't put ourselves in that headspace, when we're looking up. I got scared to death. I wanted to get Sugar Ray Leonard's autographed. I decided once in a restaurant, and I just chickened out and couldn't do it. Just
yeah, I know. Can't do it.
You know, I go back and forth, and I feel like I'm getting up there at 55. I every other day I look at life as either, man, this is short, or sometimes you look at it like, whoa, it's a long trip. And as I kind of stalked you for the last day doing my research, the long part occurred to me, like the chapters. Like you have, does it ever feel like, man, this is an endless life with so many chapters in it?
Yes, but I do look at it sometimes. I mean, when you say it's, some days you look at it, life, and it's shorter. It's shorter for me now.
Yeah.
And that does play into the way you look back at your life. I mean, the last 20 years seem to just fly by, you know? And we just have to make sure we keep doing what we set out to do and never deviate from the cause, you know, which is passion for the music. And it never, you know, sometimes it falters, the passion for me. I've said this before, but sometimes you just don't feel in the mood or whatever. And then something will happen in your life and the passion it goes to like 1,000% overnight. And all of a sudden you're inspired again.
Yeah.
It's like Bob Dylan said in Chronicles 1 that I was so thrilled to hear this. He said he went a couple of years when he couldn't write anything. And I thought,
awesome.
Good.
Yeah, thank God.
I'm so thrilled to hear that. Yeah. And so he said, and then one day I felt like I needed to write something down. So he said, I got out this legal pad, whatever he wrote it. And he said, I wrote like 10 or 12 lyrics to songs, put them in the living room drawer there, and said, I've got my next album ready. And then he said, what that made him realize was that sometimes you're always writing. You think there's no such thing as a dry spell.
Right.
You're either on input or you're on output. You can't be on output all the time without input of inspiration.
Right.
And I thought that was it made me feel better anyway.
Well, yeah, because there is the pressure to continue to create and on some kind of clock, you know, and I go back and forth between, because I think probably as rock musicians, I would call us rock musicians. I mean, I think you're everything, but still, you know, like if you're not inspired, you're just not supposed to. Where like novelists and those kind of writers, I find they usually keep office hours.
Yes.
You know, like they make time to write and they always jump into it, where I was sort of, I think, came up thinking if you're not inspired, you just don't do it. And I don't think either one of them are completely the right way to go about it. How do you balance that for yourself? Like after you've gone for a while and you're on input, I don't know, what's your signal to switch it to output?
Well, I'll usually I will all of a sudden pick up a guitar or very rarely on the piano, and something will just hit me and bing, a light goes on and I go, oh, this could be good. And then that drives the passion to finish it. But I have to, when I'm in that frame of mind, I have to say to myself, do not squander this. Go down to a music room, write the damn words.
Right. Yes. Oh, Jesus.
You know?
And everything else is more attractive.
Yeah,
at that
I
point.
don't want to
Anything
write
else.
the words.
No, who wants to do that?
But recently, I've had this spell of writing that has been pretty great. I'm in the process right now of writing for a solo album. The last 2 albums that came out were actually the Peter Frampton Band. The blues album, All Blues, and Frampton Forgets the Words.
I love that title. That's like one of the best album titles. It's so good.
Well, it's something you might say.
Yeah, I love it.
And so those were both Frampton Band because we just right before the finale tour and up to in the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, we spent probably 2.5 months in on and off in my studio in Nashville. They kept coming back. I said, "Go home. I want to do another album because I wanted to, because of my muscle disease, I have that to fight. So I wanted to make sure that I don't know how long I'm going to be able to play as good as I want to play.
Right.
You know, so let's go back in the studio. I can't write enough for an album right now. So let's go back and into the studio. We've done like 50 blues tracks. There's enough for 2. There's another blues album there. And we've done this 10-track covers instrumental record. And then I got inspired while we were doing that. And just at the end of April, beginning of May, 2019 is when I started writing new material. That's when it started. And because all this playing and recording really inspired me.
Now, why, because this is a question I ask myself, so I'm asking you, you seem to be like me, a music first person. Like if I have an idea, it's usually born of music. Is that true for you?
Yes. But sometimes I might have a title or an idea about what I want to write to, but not all the time. I'd say that's 25% of the time. Mostly I start with the music and I sing, like McCartney, scrambled egg words, or cauliflower, like John Lennon says. And just jungle lyrics, I call them. Yeah. And then I'll record that and then I'll try and sometimes there's certain ways you sing that even though it's gibberish, but it really sounds good. And, and then you have to find the words that won't take that feeling away.
Right. To not wreck the nonsense, the feeling, because the nonsense doesn't weigh on the listener. You're not asking anything of anyone. You're just giving them pitched mouth noises with a good voice and it's working. When you start to lay some meaning on it, then you're making the audience work. And it does seem like, why do you, considering that you put out a whole album where you forgot the words, why do you bother with the words then for you?
Why? Sorry, I missed that.
Why do you bother with the words? Like, that's because that's something I ask myself. Like I'll have what I feel like is a good musical idea and landscape and the melody's all there. And I feel compelled to write the words, but often I don't know why I'm compelled. Maybe it's just because I think I'm supposed to.
Yeah, that does come into it. I agree. But I feel I have something to say right now.
Okay.
A lot of the time I don't feel like I have, something not profound, but something that it profoundly affects me. And I can't write make up stories. I don't, it's all experience. And what others are going through and what I'm going through. So, you've got to live a little to be able to write those, back to the Bob Dylan thing,
Yeah. What is so you went to and your father taught at, was it Bromley Technical
Bromley
College?
Technical High School, yeah.
Technical High School. What is a technical high school for Americans?
In those days, it was not comprehensive schooling in England. Comprehensive means that everyone goes to, if you live in the area of the high school, you go to that high school.
Right.
At 11 years old, we had all children had the 11 plus exam. And from that exam, it was your results determined whether you went to one of three schools or you got a scholarship to a private school. So
okay.
There's grammar school was the top. You won. Technical high school or technical school was the middle. You just missed. And then secondary modern was you didn't do so well on the math test. So
right.
I went to, I didn't make it to the grammar school. I made it to the technical school. And the technical school that I went to was called Bromley Technical High School because it was the biggest school in South London. We had a full metal workshop, full wood workshop, pottery. My dad's art department was a complete building of like 4 floors.
Okay, so he taught art there.
He taught art and you name it, the complete 360 of art. History of architecture to portraits and stuff like that. And so, yeah, he was and a very well-liked teacher, thank God.
Yeah, because then
I had to go there. I only went there for a year, and then I took another exam and went to the grammar school because I couldn't stand calling my dad sir.
Mr. Frampton. Is that what you call him?
Yeah, Mr. Frampton. And then at the end of the day, I'd go round the back where the cars are and I'd get in the car with Dad and hey, Dad, how's it going? So it was very strange.
That would be strange. Well, I mean, to me, it was my father, a carpenter and a builder. It seems really foreign to me to have a father who is in arts at all. Like, I think that sounds amazing,
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. As like something I think a lot of people wonder, is as a parent, how to, it's a broad topic, but as a parent, how to bring your kids up in a way that is sort of appropriately artistic. With yours, did you kind of foster them towards arts, music, creativity? How did you handle that?
We had a piano when they were growing up. We had a piano in the living room, just an upright, so that they took piano lessons. That didn't seem to work. And
Interesting. Didn't seem to work. Well, why not?
No. Well, I don't think they were ready. I think it was too early. And then I gave my son Julian a guitar when he was, I don't know, about 10 or something, because I got my first one when I was 10. And thanks, Dad. And that got put in the corner.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, he calls me up and he says, Dad, let's get together. I've written a song. I said, you've written a song? He said, yeah, I want to record it with you.
Amazing.
I said, okay. How did you write a song? He said, well, I play drums now. So he'd asked me for a drum kit. And I said, a drum kit? Oh, don't think your mother's going to like that. So, but anyway, he became this very proficient, great drummer and came to where I was in my studio and everything. And we wrote a song together, which was so cool.
And then how old was he?
Oh, gosh. He must have been 14, something like that,
So, while you were busy being a human being yourself, he was behind closed doors, like achieving something at music. Is that because
Yes.
you weren't like pushing him along at this point?
Right. And my youngest daughter, Mia, is an actress as well as she plays guitar as well. But she's basically acting is what she wants to do. And so she's been, she was in Bridesmaids a while ago. She was the little girl that got Kristen fired in the shop. She was called the C word.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one over here.
Yeah,
that's not one you use in Nashville.
No, not at all.
Which actually is funny because I was one of the lines of sort of questioning. One of the things I wanted to know from you is in part drop some wisdom on our asses. Has to do with, and I don't really know how to get there because I'm not particularly a good interviewer, but I feel like that the life effect of our creations must have an impact on future creations. In other words, if you have great success with something, how do you go into the studio the next time without letting any of that creep into your head the moment that record is pressed? I mean, I feel like, everything is on a smaller scale now than what you experienced in the 70s. The business is smaller in general. But still, when someone gets patted on the back for something, the next time you make something, you don't make it with innocence again.
Right.
Do you have any conscious technique or conscious understanding of how to create when your past creations are bullying you?
The biggest bully for me, going back a ways, was obviously Frampton Comes Alive, because it was not a studio record, and it was a live record, and now I'm expected after that huge success of that to go back into the studio,
right?
And now it took 6 years worth of material to compile to make a great stage act to then record to be that live record. And so I did not want to make the follow-up record when I was making it, because I felt that I didn't have the time. I felt I'd lost before I started.
Right.
Because it was so huge that no one's going to accept. If it sells one copy less than whatever it sold, the next one, right, I'm a failure.
Yeah. And you could feel that going in. And I guess what I'm wondering is, after now years of experience creating, how would you, I don't know, how do I ask this? You should try this interviewing thing sometime. I know
I
will.
I
know what I want to know from you. I just have to figure out a way to ask it. Is obviously that's a difficult thing to surmount, and you may be the poster child for that situation. Mm-hmm. But being that, have you come up with either a method or a way of thinking about it that would help future Framptons?
Future Framptons.
Yeah, like what could you say to kids?
Yeah. For me now, there is, I stopped competing with myself 25, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Because it's anti-productive, obviously.
Yeah.
And is the enemy of inspiration. So I just feel like I'm starting again every time.
Okay.
I feel like I'm going back, like I've never written an album before. And
that's great.
Even though I'm using my past experience of writing a lot of stuff over the years, I go back in as if we're starting from scratch.
You're approaching it with some innocence.
Yes, and hopefully in that case, it will be completely different from what I did last time. I don't ever want to repeat myself. I mean, when I sit down and I play an idea, I start, just jamming some chords or riffs or whatever. Nope, done that before. No. Oh, now, okay, let's put that bit down. That's good. But there's so much more that I go, there's a lot on the floor. There's more on the floor than make it to actually my music right here, and I actually finish the lyrics and everything.
But that's tough to be your own editor in that way, isn't it? Because a lot of things that might come to you, and you might be like, well, I've done that before. They still might be inspired, or they might feel good.
Yeah, I know. I just obviously there's I can change as much as I can change, but I can't change the essence of my creativity and how I do it. It's always going to be me underneath everything, but for me, it's got to be different.
Yeah.
For people are going to hear my voice and go, "Oh, that's Frampton." Yeah, but it's not the Frampton you heard,
right,
5 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever.
Yeah. And, your bud David Bowie was probably, I can't think of any artist of any walk that was more sort of insistent about the reinvention. And that seems like that's like Madonna or someone. That's one way to do it, to say, here is the flavor this year. I'm going in this direction. Beck did that. Like, he'd make a record. It's obviously a funk record. And then you go, you think you know that? Now I'm going to do a ballad record. It's completely different. But,
exactly.
So if that's their method, what do you have a method when you embark on a new record to separate yourself from what you did before?
I usually find I keep writing until I find that one song or piece of music. It might not be a song, might be an instrumental, but and I just go, that. Now that's breaking new ground for me right there. And it makes me smile. It gets me all excited, and I want to go on to the next one quickly,
Yeah.
But I think that's it for me. I have to find that lead track that is a step above what I've done before, as far as I'm concerned. Might not be for anybody else, but it's for me.
So you like to think of the songs that you write as being in company of an album. You're not really writing one-offs. You're thinking of them together.
Well, not always. No, not always, because I've actually released like a single. I Say the Bird was just a single, I believe. But no, when I find something that is good, it's usually the beginning of a slew that could be an album. Yes.
Yeah. Did you read that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
I did not.
That thing is just I found that a really, really freeing way to look at succeeding in anything, because while I think everyone would like to put across the myth that they did it all themselves, that's usually the message you get from people. Is like, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps and I did all this myself. What I loved about that book was it showed that even adversity, someone who's in a situation which would seem really tough, like, Brian Wilson or something like that, their life leading up to their success was uniquely suited to make it almost inevitable that they were way ahead of the pack. And in that way, if we start to appreciate those things, I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off of that sort of fraudulent life story. I've found that for myself in my small way, to go, you know what? Those things that were kind of tough, that is actually a gift. And these things that are very, like, I came from a place that, we had so many local great bands. I didn't know they weren't international. I just didn't know.
Right.
Like there were just so many left and right. You just go there. And, like from faraway land, from just over the border comes REM to play the like burrito stands and stuff. And I would see it from outside. It held 40 people, and Michael Stipe had his hands in his pocket and his long hair in front of his face. And that was just music. I didn't think that they were unfamous or not famous. And so I think I came from a place that was very fortunate in that way, is that I was surrounded by really talented musicians. Looks like in your era, holy shit, like you come from an island where it seems to me that like you almost couldn't throw a rock and not hit a great musician. Did it feel like that growing up? I mean, just to look at your Wikipedia page to start my stalking is like, man, like that must have had a huge impact on you. What were you aware of when you were a kid, being around all this talent?
Well, once I heard Cliff Richard and the Shadows on the radio, and then I bought the records, and they were on TV. It seemed as if they ruled for about a couple of years, and then all hell broke loose with Beatles, Stones, Who, Small Faces, Jimi Hendrix, this one, that one.
Yeah.
And yes, it did seem like I would go to the Brommel Club probably when I was about 15, 16, Bromley North up there. And they had Sonny Boy Williamson come over from America. Then there would be Jimi Hendrix. Georgie Fame, all these incredible, John Mayall with Eric Clapton, not with Eric Clapton, and not with Eric Clapton again, all different guitarists. And it would be, that was what I was into, was the Graham Bond organization, which was Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, and Dick Hextall Smith on sax. And I would go and see these bands, Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames, unbelievable. There was so many great musicians.
Were they letting you go in? What was it like going into play clubs? Because in your era, being so young, like, considering drinking in pubs and stuff, you just paint a mustache on and go in and play, or did they?
Well, when I was in the Preachers, because I was underage, I was 14, and they would bring me in the pub, but they'd have to like buy me a shandy or something, which is half beer, half lemonade, and slip it to me because I wasn't supposed to drink. But
you could be in there.
Yeah, so I could be in there with the guys when we took a break from rehearsing.
Yeah, but even besides the bands that you went to see, like just your homies and the bands that you started, I mean, there's a lot of talent going on. There. Did you know a lot of other as a teenager, like just at your schools and stuff? Did you know a lot of other players that were like just great musicians?
Pete Sears from Starship. And Jefferson Starship. He was with the original. He was in my school.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And in fact, but when the True Beats were playing, which was my very first band, when I was like, I don't know what age I was, 10 or something. I would borrow his Bird amplifier because it had reverb and tremolo. And if you put the tremolo on slow and put the reverb on, it almost sounded like he had like a delay as well, because we couldn't afford a delay, So yeah, so I always used to borrow his, and he would lend me anything I wanted.
Was it a rush in that time to find new effects for a guitar? Was that part of it for you? The technology of stomp boxes and stuff?
Yeah, well, that's, if you think about it, there was only one pedal. When we recorded Comes Alive, which is 75, there was only a couple of pedals. Obviously, you had your wah-wah, your wah face, all different wah-wahs, a lot of different wah-wahs. And then all of a sudden, we got the MXR Phase 90. And that was the beginning of the whole thing. I already had a delay machine, a Binson Echo Rec, which Gilmore used as well, because that was the delay that sounded the best at that time, you know. But no, so really, like with Humble Pie's live record, and all of Humble Pie's studio records, there's no effects. It's just guitar amp, you know. It's very straightforward.
Yeah,
you know,
I guess it
Rock
is.
in the
Yeah,
Fillmore, the Rock in the Fillmore is me plugged into straight into a 100-watt, linked to a 50-watt with 2 cabs. That's it. No other effects whatsoever.
I used a talk box for a while on a sort of an experimental album I did, just something I'd always wanted to try. Because I thought you were just making that happen with your fingers when I was 10 years old. And I was like, Jesus, this motherfucker can talk with his fingers. It's amazing. So I always wanted to use one of those. And I found it really addictive, like actually physically addictive, like blowing all of that sound. I don't know if people understand what it is. It's like you're blowing an amp speaker into your mouth and it vibrates your face. Did you get addicted to those? Like physically?
I can't say I got addicted to it, but I knew that after a while, there was no way that I couldn't play it. I had to play it every night. So in a way, Talkbox became, like Comes Alive, for a while there became, you know, my enemy as well as my friend, you know, because he's the guy that makes the guitar talk, isn't he?
Right, yeah.
So, you know, and I've spoken with Joe Walsh about this. We are the 2 commissioners of the Talkbox, and we hold. So we hold that, and of course, there was one other gentleman that used to use Talkbox who passed away, Roger Troutman.
Okay.
Have you not heard of him?
No, I'm not. I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
Check out Roger Troutman. You know what I'm saying.
Gotcha. I got you, Roger Troutman.
So,
got it.
Yes. And listen to his Talkbox stuff with the synth. And Stevie Wonder used it for his synth. And it has a lovely warmer effect with the keyboards, synths and stuff. And I've used it with the synth, but obviously.
I don't know. You came on that in the music store and you thought it'd be a good idea.
No.
How'd you find that? I mean, I found one like 10 years ago somewhere. I think they were someone was remaking them, but who's making those things?
Well, it was Heil. Bob Heil made them. But I very quickly, I first heard this sound on the radio when I was listening to Radio Luxembourg when I was still at school, and their AM call numbers were 208, and they were associated with this magazine Fabulous 208, and so their call sign was Fabulous 208, but it was done with, I forget what the thing is called before the Talkbox, and a lot of radio stations in America as well did their call letters with this sort of computer voice.
Oh, okay.
So I heard that sound and I went, how do you do that? So being a gadget freak from very early on. And then George Harrison called me up and asked me to play on All Things Must Pass. And I'm there and we were playing acoustic with George and 3 of Badfinger there. And with Phil Spector, the producer, and you know, Derek and the Dominoes and Klaus Voormann and Gary Wright. It was just a slew of incredible players.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So George says, well, you know, we've got tomorrow, we've got Pete Drake coming in from Nashville, pedal steel player. And so I said, oh, fantastic. And he says he played on Nashville Skyline. Bob told me about him. So, you know, so I was very excited. about meeting him and playing with pedal steel player from Nashville. So he sets up, literally, my knees are up against his pedal steel. And we're just looking at each other, and George is over here. And there's a slow moment as they change the tapes, you know. You actually had to rewind and change tapes in those days, which I think we should take that time, as if after each digital recording that we do live, we should go, okay, rewind, give us like 3 minutes, you know?
Yeah, slow down.
So I've forgotten what I was talking about now. What was I talking about?
No, but that's really good because we are talking about technology.
Pete Drake and you.
Oh, no, Pete Drake. Yeah. So sorry. Sorry, I'm old.
You feel like that's your Ed McMahon over in the corner.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. Thank you. He finishes my sentences for me. Thank you.
I want to see this man.
Yeah. So anyway, in this slow moment, Pete Drake says, "You want to hear something?" I said, "Yeah." And I thought he was just going to play me a tune. And he gets out this box, puts it on the end, and then some wires, and finally he's plugging in this and that. And then he gets out this tube and sticks it on this box thing and puts the tube in his mouth, and the pedal steel starts singing to me. He sings with the pedal steel. And that actual time is the audio for that moment is actually on YouTube, which is amazing to me.
Oh,
and there's me and George laughing at that time. And
that is fantastic.
So I said, that's, of course, you know what I'm thinking. That's the fabulous 208 sound. This is how you do it, you know. So I said to him, "Where did you get that? And can I get one?" He said, "Well, I made this one myself." And I said, "Oh, okay, gosh." So that was like 1970. And about 1973 is when Bob Heil of Heil Sound gave me a talk box for Christmas, because what had happened was Pete Drake lent his talk box to Joe Walsh, who then did Rocky Mountain Way, which I always say is the definitive talk box solo without talking, you know. And I spoke with Joe about that, and it's absolutely true. So then Joe said who was a ham radio operator, friends with Bob Heil, for his sound system and everything. And he said, "Hey, Bob, this one's too quiet. I need a loud one." You know, so, but guess what? Bob made one that you could plug your 100-watt Marshall into. So there it was. And I got one for Christmas. And then the very first time I used it was in the studio, actually.
Well, that's what struck me about it, is how loud it is. I mean, it's a tube stuck in your mouth, and it's loud.
Yeah. It's loud.
Yeah.
I've got it to the point now where I can tune it in so that it doesn't shatter my mouth too much.
Yeah, because it does vibrate your head, which I think the reason I asked you if you were addicted is somehow I got fixated on it. I was recording it for like 2 weeks, and I just kept on finding myself sticking that tube in my mouth and blowing. I was using a distorted clav.
Yes. Yeah, well, there's probably other reasons for that, Ben. We don't know. We'd have to go offline into that one.
That's right. That's something for my shrink, yeah.
Yeah.
Will you be my shrink?
If you want, I'll put you on the couch anytime, babe.
Well, look, I think you're probably more qualified than most in the in that business, because you've had a lot of lives, and I think that's the kind of person I want to sit and tell my problems to.
Okay.
When you so we were talking about technology, and I did want to talk to you about that a little bit, because it does occur to me sometimes that pop music evolves, and so often we attribute it to everything but technology. And I sometimes think it's almost all technology. Like you were talking about the quiet time waiting to rewind, and then now it's like, boom, it started over again, and you're just, oh my fucking God, and you're having to record again, and you can't reflect on what you've done.
No.
And accidents can't happen. Like you discover the talk box things can't happen. What do you think? So like the 60s and the 70s start up, 70s in, the 80s start up. What about those eras? I don't know what I'm trying to ask you, but I figure you may have an answer of some sort. I feel like there's a shift every decade that's almost kind of corny. It's like if you were riding the horse in the 80s, then you're thrown off as soon as Nirvana gets big. And if you were on the horse in the 90s, as soon as it's not cool to be pissed off anymore, you're thrown off the horse again. You know what?
Well,
Talk to that.
I went. It's funny you should say that, because by the time we got to England to tour the Comes Alive record, the end of '76, I arrived, and on the front page of the NME and Melody Maker is the Sex Pistols. So here I arrive in my satins and my Lord Fauntleroy shirt, and you know, and they're like spitting and swearing, and I thought, oh, it's changed, and you're absolutely right. It was the beginning of the '80s, you know.
Was there a thought in your head that you needed to? Oh man, I need to get there and vomit on stage a little bit.
No, I actually, I thought this won't last.
Right.
Like an idiot, you know. It's like the big band players when Elvis came out. They said, you know what? This ain't gonna last, this rock and roll stuff, you know. So how wrong were they, you know? And so how wrong was I, you know? Because then that was the beginning of a real invigorating time musically, with the Clash and, you know, all these bands that they might not have been totally in tune, but the sentiment and the angst level was very high. And I think people like the fact that they'd taken it. Punks took it back to nothing. Again,
it's true.
No effects, just barely in tune.
Yeah. Well, it does seem things can get bloated, and then the kids come along and are like, but it can be done like this.
Right.
Back to almost reminding you where you started, because it's not like you didn't know what it was like to play, you know, shitty clubs with just an amp and that's it. Like you knew that, you know.
Right. Yeah.
What acts of that era was there a first punk band that made you hear it?
It was the Clash.
Same here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Clash was the band for me because I just loved the fact that it was just flat out this, and they had great songs too.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's not that they were just like angst. It was angst with great songs.
Yeah.
So.
And great musicianship. That shit grooves.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also like interesting songwriting. I was listening the other day, that song The Right Profile came on, and it's like, it sounds like to me, it's just about a couple passing a car wreck, and they see that Montgomery Clift, the actor, is in the car.
Oh,
that's the song, and what a neat little short story. If I got it right, and they keep singing it over and over again, which is interesting. They go, that's Montgomery Clift, honey, and then the song cycle starts again, and it's like it's really inventive, which makes me think that as much as you might have gotten any era is going to get it a little bit wrong when the new one comes in. One thing that hasn't changed is a song has to be good.
Yes. And
I mean, I've yet to see that anyone really buck that. You might have one thing that's like an effects thing that becomes famous, but in general, we all still want to hear songs. What makes a song great to you?
If you can sit down with one voice and one instrument, whether you're playing it or not, and sing a song from beginning to end, and it just stands up, you know, just guitar and voice, piano and voice.
Song that doesn't need inherent orchestration inside it.
It's finished. You know, you can do it's you can take it from here to here, but does it need this?
Right.
It's like I have I have that lead song. It's actually about my granddaughter, and it's just two acoustics, voice, and a little bit of acoustic solo. That's it. It's kind of like a demo right now, and but I'm so proud of it because it's something that I just feel it's one of the better songs I've ever written. On a par with "Lines on My Face," which is my favorite song I ever wrote. So,
that's cool.
I'm putting it up there, which is big for me.
What I loved when I was a kid was your song "Penny for Your Thoughts."
Oh, thanks.
Loved that. I wore that out. I just loved the sound of it. You know what else I played endlessly? And when I loved a record at that age, I guess maybe because of the record player I had, I played the records until they kind of turned white and didn't sound right anymore. Like they just actually, the grooves, I guess it ate the vinyl off of the record.
Right.
I did that with your version of Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
Oh, okay.
I had that as a kid. I had it's a dog bone tone arm. It looked like a dog bone. And it would play, and I just pick it back up, started from the beginning again, just loved it.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, after we'd finished recording that, I had contacted Stevie Wonder to come and play some harmonica on another track. And while he was there, I had the guts to play it to him, and he loved it. He was singing along, singing backgrounds and everything. And then he was so excited. He said, "You know who wrote the words for that, don't you?" I said, "No." He said, "My mother."
Really?
Yes. If you look, there's two Hardaways on that at the publishing there.
How about that?
His name is Hardaway. Yeah.
I never knew that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I like to get for the creative listeners of the podcast an exercise that you will make up. Since your father's a teacher, so you should be able to come up with something.
When I was about mid-40s to now, I've exercised, literally worked out pretty much. I started off 3 days a week, and now because of my muscle thing, I work out 6 days a week. And I don't think I'm addicted to that. That inspires me. Because, I can be a schlub too, I can, I can just, be a couch potato. So like we all can for, binge watch this, whatever. But when I work out, it's something that really inspires. I feel inspired by that. Work
out 3 times this next week?
Yes, absolutely. If you can work out 3 times this week, I guarantee it'll make you feel better.
As far as relating that to creativity, do you find that you walk out of the gym going, I'm pumped, I'm going to write a song? Is that the way it works for you? Do you actually get inspired just high on your muscles?
No, I don't think so. I think that it sets the day. That's what I always do, it early in the morning, and it sets the day off on a good trajectory. That's and if I'm going to be creative today, I've definitely done everything I can do to make sure that happens.
Do you find that you have ideas at any particular time of the day more than others?
Yeah, usually at night.
Yeah.
Usually when everything's dark, quiet, no phone calls, no texts, no nothing. And I actually, I have an acoustic next to me on the bed so I can reach for it.
Do you?
So, yeah, I have one right there. And then I've got my trusty, you-know-what. And before I pick the acoustic up every time, I start record on my iPhone, just in case, because I'm old and I forget things. So, this way I go, oh gosh, if I hadn't got that on tape, I wouldn't have. And that's the perfect next chord for that, So yeah,
So you don't subscribe to the if I can't remember it, it must not have been good, because I don't. I found that's not true, but
maybe earlier on, but I can't remember it now. So it has to be recorded, So
right. So you're a night person. Do you left to your own devices? If there's no other civilization to take into account, what time would you go to bed and wake up?
I'm kind of now I'm off the road.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an early 10, 11 o'clock. But then if I'm playing guitar, I might wake up at 1 o'clock and play guitar, so,
okay.
But, 11 o'clock, something like that. But gosh, I don't know whether it's just the years, but I wake up so early. Are you finding that yet?
Yeah. I hate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's great because you get a lot done, but I wish I could just sleep that extra hour.
Yeah. So just to clear that one thing up, because I'm actually kind of curious about it. So when you say you have ideas at night, you're actually talking about you're in bed and then and it means enough to you to get up and grab the guitar and do all this. You actually get off your ass and do that. And that's part of you, man.
Well, sit on the edge of the bed and put this thing on and start playing. And then if I come up with something, I'll listen to it in the morning, and then I work out, and then maybe it'll make it to the music room where I will start to put a little demo together and finish and write some words and all that.
Yeah. Well, man, it's really, really good to see you. And
same here.
And an honor to get to talk to you about this stuff. It's you might not realize it, but I've learned. We've talked at length now twice, and I've learned volumes and volumes of shit that you didn't probably even realize as you're saying it. It means a lot. So.
Well, that's good. It's great to talk to you.
Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. Thank you so much for watching Lightning Bugs on YouTube. Check out more episodes and subscribe if you have not already. You can also listen to Lightning Bugs wherever podcasts may be found.